Securities offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through CWM, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Carson Partners, a division of CWM, LLC, is a nationwide partnership of advisors. This is The Way to Wealth, with host Scott Ford, a jiu-jitsu fighting, woodworking, beekeeping entrepreneur who is also the managing director, partner, and wealth advisor of Carson Wealth. Financial freedom is the goal, and clarity and simplicity is how we'll get there. Let's get to it. This is Way to Wealth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Way to Wealth podcast, where we're all about making money simple, allowing you to focus on living now and fully live now, because that's all we have. So super excited today to have Dr. Margaret Paul with us on the podcast. And I want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Paul. Have known her actually for a time now and have looked at her work. It's amazing. And so, but I want to do it justice. So let me actually share her, Dr. Paul's bio. She's a best-selling author, relationship expert, co-creator of the powerful inner bonding self-healing process. She's appeared on numerous radio and television shows, including Oprah. Imagine that. Her book titles include Do I Have to Give Up Me to Be Loved by You? Over 1 million sold. That's pretty impressive. Healing Your Aloneness, Inner Bonding, and the recently released Diet for Divine Connection and the Inner Bonding Workbook. Margaret has successfully worked with hundreds of thousands around the world and taught classes and seminars for over 53 years. With that, welcome to the Way to Wealth podcast, Dr. Margaret Paul.
Thank you so much, Scott. Looking forward to this.
Yes, me too. I still have so much to learn about your work, and this gives me a way to do it and share it with my audience. So super excited. I'll set the stage. Most know this, but maybe someone's just listening in. The Way to Wealth is about making money simple. But today's not about money. Why is that? Well, you've heard me talk about health, wealth, wisdom, and happiness. And wealth, the way to wealth is to help people be financially free so we can just check that box. But as you dive deeper under the health, wealth, wisdom, and under wealth specifically, beneath being financially free is having enough. Because you can have $1 billion, but if you don't feel like you're enough and you have enough, you're not really wealthy. And then ultimately, the third tier down is love. I mean, that's true wealth. Like that, to me, is what the whole game is about. So that's why I'm super stoked to have Dr. Paul on. I had one more data point. So when you get to the whole healthy, wealthy, wise, the happy, the first thing in happiness to me is healthy relationships. Well, there's no better person in my mind to talk about love and healthy relationships than Dr. Paul. So I just wanted to set that context to why this is important, because money's just a tool. We can check that box and then truly live. So I know about you, Dr. Paul, but I'd love my audience to just understand, why do you do the work you do and what got you to where you're at today?
Well, I continue to do the work because I love it. I love helping people. And I got to it actually very early in life. I had a kind of messed up childhood. And by the time I was 5, my mother took me to a psychiatrist, and he told me to tell my mother not to yell at me, which was happening all the time. And my thought was, I'm only 5 years old and she's not going to listen to me. So why don't you tell her? And my next thought was, I can do a better job than you. So I knew I was going to do this work since I was 5 years old.
That's amazing. And it's like when I think of my background and the people that I interview, there's always this really strong why. And clearly that's a really strong why. So no shock that you've been, blessed and are having such an impact, because the why is so clear and so strong, and going the whole way back to 5. That's pretty cool and amazing.
And so I practiced as a traditional psychotherapist for 17 years, but I wasn't happy with the results of that. And so then I started to pray for a process that would actually work. And that's when I met the co-creator of Inner Bonding, Dr. Erica Chopich, and our higher guidance kind of downloaded this incredible process. That was 37 years ago. So it's been evolving, and it's an amazing process. I just feel so blessed. It's been so life-changing for me and for so many other people.
It is. It is an amazing process, and nothing like getting download with truth, and because that's where it's at ultimately. So I'm excited that you got it. I'm excited that you've shared it, and I'm excited to share it with my audience and as many people as I can, because it is truth is truth is truth. So thinking about what I mentioned, love and healthy relationship. I know you've talked before, and I've heard you talk about learning to love yourself. So when you think about love, why is that so important, learning to love yourself?
Well, if you don't love yourself, which most people don't, most people have been programmed in their lower left brain, which is where their ego and fight or flight mechanism is, to absorb the ego wounded aspects of their parents, how their parents treated themselves, how they treated us. And so in that place in our brain, there's so many negative beliefs like I'm not good enough and I'll never make it. I'll never be as good as that person or this person, or compare myself, or what's wrong with me, or I'm such a jerk, or these are all things that people tell themselves all the time. Once we judge ourselves like that, then of course we feel bad about ourselves. We feel empty and lonely and alone inside. Then, because we need love, we then try and control other people to give us what we're not giving to ourselves. And this is what wrecks relationships, because once we've made somebody else responsible for whether or not we're okay, for feeling safe, for having a sense of well-being, a sense of self-worth, then we try and control them with anger, with blame, with withdrawal of love, so many, with giving ourselves up, people pleasing, so many ways that we try and control. And all of these create distance and dysfunction in a relationship. As soon as we pull on somebody to fill us up, and they pull on us because we meet at our common level of what I call self-abandonment, which is all the ways we're not loving ourselves. So then each of us is expecting the other person to love us. And, of course, you know what happens in those relationships. It's a disaster. And so it's vital for us to learn to love ourselves so that we can share our love with each other. When we learn to love ourselves, we learn to tap into a higher source of love. We learn to fill ourselves up with love. And then that love is overflowing, and we want to share it with everybody, but especially with our parents, our spouses, our kids, our friends, our coworkers. We want to share it. And truly, the sharing of love is the greatest experience in life. People get confused between sharing love and getting love. They think it's getting love, and that doesn't hold a candle to sharing love. But we can't share love if we don't love ourselves and we're not filling ourselves up with love.
You got it. Like, love is where it's at. That is true wealth. And I can say, so if you're listening, putting this together, I know that I've done this in the past where I'm looking for love. And because of that, then you could either be, needy, or you could be authoritative, or you could be non-compassionate, whatever it is. And it's only because I wasn't looking and finding it inside myself and being whole and complete within myself with that love within. I was trying to get it externally. So I've heard it said, like, we all. We first have to be healthy and whole and complete here to then go to the family and loved ones of the we. And once healthy and complete there, then we can go to the world and share that love as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And a lot of people know this. They know the what, but they don't know the how. And inner bonding, these 6 steps, these 6 powerful steps of inner bonding, is the how to get there. What it actually means to learn to love yourself, how you know what's loving to you, and how you have the ability and the strength to take those actions that define your worth and fill you up so that you do have that love to share.
Let's talk about it, because if people are listening, all this would make sense. I think so. It certainly makes sense to me. It's like, yeah, it's a great point. Okay, how do I do that? I've not done very well up till now. So how would I accomplish that?
Okay, so I'll briefly go through the 6 steps. And step 1 is learning to get present in your body, because this is where your feelings are. Now, virtually all of us had pain as we were growing up, whether with parents or siblings or school or peers or whatever. We had pain. And we were too little to manage that pain unless we had enlightened parents who knew how to help us with that. But most of our parents had no idea how to handle their pain. And so we learned to stay up in our head, to disconnect from our body. It's a dissociative process that we all learn. Stay up in my head and then I can't feel my pain. Well, our feelings, and a lot of people don't know this, they try and numb out their feelings, but our feelings are a source of inner guidance. Our feelings come from the part of our soul that's inside our body that communicates mostly through feelings. And every single feeling we have has vital information. It's either telling us that we're loving ourselves or we're abandoning ourselves, or it's telling us what's happening with another person or a situation that we may need to attend to. So when we disconnect from our feelings by staying up in our head, by judging ourselves, another form of self-abandonment, by numbing out with addictions, another form, or like we said, making somebody else responsible, we're not aware. And so step one is learning to get present in your body, which took me quite a while because I was in my head tuned into everybody else's feelings, but not to mine. Yeah. So practicing getting in your body and wanting responsibility. This is the essence of learning to love ourselves, is that we want responsibility for our own feelings. We're not making other people or God or spirit or the universe or whatever responsible. We want responsibility. That's step one. Step two is we move into our heart. We breathe in. And in inner bonding, there's only two intentions. One is the intention to learn about loving ourselves and sharing our love. And the other is the intention to protect against pain with various forms of controlling and self-abandoning behavior. So in step two, we're making a decision to open to learning. And we teach people how to easily connect with a higher source, their higher self, whatever that is for them, God, spirit, universe, higher self, whatever that is. We teach them how to connect with that quite easily. And so we open and we invite that love and compassion and strength and wisdom into our heart. And that's what creates what we call in inner bonding, the loving adult. We need to be a loving adult to be doing this work. So we need to be in our upper brain. The loving adult's in the upper brain. That fear part is in the lower left, and our true soul is in the lower right. But our loving adult is in our upper brain. And as you practice these steps, you develop new neural pathways in your higher brain for being a loving adult. So step two is we're becoming that adult. Step three, we're now going back inside and we're asking, what am I doing? What am I telling you? How am I treating you? Like we're talking to a child inside. We can think of our soul like an inner child. And what am I not doing that's making you, let's say, anxious or depressed or angry or guilty or shamed or empty, feeling alone inside, feeling jealous? What am I doing to cause that? Or what's going on between me and somebody else? And then we go inside and we allow those feelings to speak to us. And when we're really open, we're going to get so much information. Like, let's say you go in because you're feeling anxious, and that inner self might say, well, you're putting all this pressure on me and you're telling me I'm not good enough, and you're telling me I got to be perfect and I got to do everything right so that I can get everybody else's approval. Well, that's going to cause a lot of anxiety. And then we go a little deeper into that programmed part of the lower left brain, the ego wounded self. And we're looking for the beliefs. Why am I doing that? Like, why am I telling myself that I have to be perfect? Where did I come to believe that there is a perfect, or that I can control how people feel about me? So many different beliefs that we can uncover. People think it's really hard to uncover these beliefs, but it's not. When you practice this process, you get down to those beliefs fairly easily. So once you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, then step four is we go back to our higher self, our higher power. We're asking two questions. One is, what's the truth about these beliefs? Like, can I really have control over people? And the other is, what would be loving to me? What else do I need to do that's different than what I'm doing? And with practice, we learn to access that information. And then in step five, we take the loving action. And this could be hundreds of different things. Maybe the loving action is notice every time I judge myself. Maybe the loving action is change my diet or get some exercise or go back to school, or could be so many different things. But when we're willing to take action for ourselves, then we start to feel like we're important, like we matter. And then in step 6, we go back in to see how we're feeling. And if we're feeling some relief, feeling a bit more self-worth, then we know that we've indeed taken a loving action. So of course, that's very brief, and it takes practice. Like anything worth learning, it takes practice. But with practice, people can get very good at this, and it's just incredibly life-changing.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yes, and well said. And though brief, there's a lot to what you just said. In fact, if I just listen to that and I can think about me personally, I know it's taking me a long time to really feel. Now it's not a problem, but years ago, I was so, and maybe some listening can relate to this, I was so caught in my head as a doer that I thought I was feeling, but everything was just reasoning and worrying about others and not actually listening to what my body was telling me.
Right.
So 2 thoughts I have on that. One, what helped me years ago start to turn on that or learn on that was a book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Actually, the body has the wisdom. It has messages for me. So that's when it clicked for me. And this has been a lot of years ago, but and worked since then. What would you say, even at that first step, Dr. Paul, would be useful for people listening if they can relate to that and be like, yeah, I can't get out of my head and feel, I think I'm feeling, but I'm really probably not. What would you suggest for them?
Well, one of the things is to practice using the breath. The breath, just following your breath can take you in your body. But the problem that I had is that I couldn't remember to do it because I was so used to being in my head. I couldn't even remember that I had a body. And so at that time, I got a little gadget called a motivator, but people can use their cell phones to remind them. I reminded myself this thing would buzz against my body. And I could set it. And I set it at first every 5 minutes, and then every 10 minutes, and every half an hour, because I just couldn't remember on my own. And I put sticky notes around, and I wore a rubber band. I mean, I did all sorts of things just to remind me to get inside my body. And it took time. It took practice. Now I live within my body. Now I know the minute I feel something, and I can attend to it and learn from it. But, it's not an instant process. So yeah, now I can just take a breath. I'm there. I can tune in. This is where I live now, like you're talking about. But, when I started doing this, I didn't live there at all.
Yes, I can so relate. My journey with that, yours is simplistic and makes so much sense. So totally behind it. What helped me, speaking about being in my head. So I had to read a book by a Harvard medical doctor, Dr. Herbert Benson. So, because the other stuff sounded too woo for me. It's like the other meditation and some of the other breath work just seemed too woo. Now I'm probably as woo as anyone, having said that, but then I wasn't. And so I read this book called The Relaxation Response. That sounded simple, and I knew I needed to relax. And then it was by a Harvard medical doctor. And then it was like 5 minutes. I'm like, I can do 5 minutes. And all he had you do is breathe in, sit, quiet place, all that. No necessarily pose, just sit, quiet place, breathe in. And on the exhale, say 1. Breathe in, on the exhale, say 1. Do that for 5 minutes. Timer goes off, done for the day. Try to get to 10 minutes. Anyway, these were baby steps. And as a long time ago, but that was my entry into finally quieting that monkey mind down enough to go, oh yeah, I do have a body and it does speak to me. So yours makes so much sense and is super, super helpful. What about, so inner bonding, 6 steps, beautiful. And we'll have follow-up for the audience. What about self-abandonment and the effect that has on all relationships?
Well, of course, like I was saying, as soon as we abandon ourselves, and I'll mention again the 4 major ways. 1 is we stay in our head. 2 is we judge ourselves. 3, we numb out with various addictions, both process and substance addictions, to not feel. And 4, we hand over the responsibility to somebody else. Like you have a child, instead of taking care of the child, you hand the child out for adoption. We're handing our feelings out for adoption, making somebody else responsible. All of these are forms of self-rejection, self-abandonment. When we're rejecting ourselves, then of course we're going to feel bad. Of course we're going to feel anxious and depressed and empty. And of course, we're not going to have any love to share. And of course, then we're going to try and have control. We're going to find various ways of manipulating to try and get love. So I hope people can start to see that self-abandonment is actually the underlying cause of most relationship problems. It's not the various issues like child raising or money or things like that. It's really about self-abandonment, because you can solve all of these external issues. But if you're abandoning yourself, you're going to be anxious or depressed or empty or angry. And then you're going to be in this dynamic with a partner or a parent or a child where you're trying to control them. And, most people hate to be controlled. They want to be in control, but they hate to be controlled. So as soon as we try and control somebody, they're going to go into resistance. And even if they go into compliance, like many of us did, we're going to be angry and resentful. We're going to shut down in various ways. We're not going to be, in a committed relationship. The sexuality is going to go out the window. There's no way to be turned on when we're abandoning ourselves and trying to control each other. So self-abandonment is the bottom line of the problems in relationships. And as you said, I've been working with this for 53 years. I can spot the system really fast. And then I can help each person see how they're abandoning themselves, what would be loving to themselves. And it's amazing what happens in relationships when people start to take responsibility for their own feelings instead of blaming each other or numbing out or going to various addictions, food, alcohol, drugs, work and pornography and affairs so many people have, and just so many ways of trying to get filled externally to fill up that emptiness that they're causing with their self-abandonment.
Yeah, well said. You mentioned work, and that comes to mind as well. So, there's a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, in our audience. And so when you think of work, this is just as applicable there as well, right? This is the same kind of thing with work relationships. We talk about core values and culture and our vision and all that, and that's all good. Yet the actual day-to-day interaction is what your culture and core values are. Right. So I can see this being super applicable to businesses and work as well.
Oh, yes, it's hugely applicable because so many businesses today are really having a lot of conflict because they're trying to control each other rather than be open to learning with each other. This is a completely different way of being. It's like if somebody does something you don't like at work, instead of just giving yourself up or blaming them or criticizing them, in inner bonding, people learn to say, this is upsetting to me, but there must be a very good reason that you've done this. And can you help me understand? This is a door opener. This is the intention to learn. The intention to learn is extremely powerful in helping people resolve conflict. So yes, it very much applies to work.
I can see that. That is interesting dynamic of how it's just applicable in so many. But it's not surprising either because it's all relationships. That's this whole thing, and this whole game to me. And this came to me not that long ago, but that's what I see the way to wealth and what I'm up to at this stage in my life moving forward. This whole thing's about healing. Yeah. We all just want to be okay. We all just want this sense of well-being, and you're sharing a way to get that. And so it's beautiful work. One of the things I would love you to share, Dr. Paul, is you don't need to share how many times you've been around the sun on this planet, but yet I know part of feeling your body and part of your work, there's ways that you have lived to be able to look 20 years younger than you are and to feel your body. And I would love you to share with the audience a little bit about that as well.
Okay, I don't mind people knowing my age because for some people it's been inspiring. So I'm 82 years old. I'm in excellent health and vitality. And so there's basically 3 pillars to excellent health. And one of them is your state of mind, which is inner bonding. If you're in anxiety, if you're in stress, this very much affects the immune system. And then, of course, it's how you treat your body. Now, I've been, fortunately for me, I found out about eating organic food 60 years ago. I was a sickly kid and I was tired of being sick and I started reading books. So I started eating really well 60 years ago. And it really helped my health. But when I was 45, I started getting really sick again. And I didn't know why. And that, fortunately, is when spirit brought in inner bonding. And I realized that as well as I was eating and exercising and sleeping and doing all the good things, meditating, doing all the good things, I was abandoning myself. I was giving myself up. I was caretaking everybody else and expecting them to give me what I wasn't giving myself. And you can't keep doing that without a lot of stress, which doctors will tell you 90% of the people that come in is stress related. So fortunately, that's when inner bonding came in. I started to practice and I got healthy. And then the third pillar is your spirituality, is that because we have no role models, most of us did not have good role modeling as we were growing up. I certainly didn't at all. My parents were atheists. I didn't grow up with anything. And they had no idea how to love themselves or love me. So there was no role modeling. The role modeling has to come from our higher guidance. Being able to tap into your higher knowing is about your frequency. It's the rate at which you're vibrating, and spirit vibrates at a higher frequency than we do. So we have to be able to raise our frequency, and it takes 2 things. One is the intention to learn about loving yourself raises your frequency. It's really powerful. And the other is to keep your body clean, not to be eating the junk food, the sugar, over drinking, things like that, but to be keeping your body clean because your body has a frequency. And if you're putting a lot of junk in it, your frequency is going to be too low because there's so many low frequency foods. Go into any supermarket and look at the shelves, and they're all low frequency foods, and they're going to not only tank your health, they're going to tank your frequency and make it very hard for you to access that love and that truth that's here for everyone. And I just want to say that life is so different when we have this higher source of love and wisdom to turn to at any moment. I've been practicing this for a long time now, 37 years, and I wouldn't know how to live without this because my mind does not know what's loving. My mind doesn't even know what's good for me or not good for me, but my higher guidance does. And I've developed what I call at-will divine connection, which I talk about in my book. The Diet for Divine Connection is how to have that at-will divine connection. And it's like having a direct access to this incredible source of wisdom that is for you personally. And so this is what creates health.
Yes, that's a download right there. So hit rewind and capture that, everyone. That's a download. So I'll say, when I think about stress, which is exactly right, all doctors will say that's like the number one cause to illness. That's my passion and way to wealth, the money pieces, because money can be such a stressor to people and families, and it doesn't have to be. And I think the industry have made things complicated so that they can take advantage of you, in my opinion. So let's just simplify it and get back to natural laws and natural order, which are where the real answers are. So the thing I'll share, and audience should be real clear now when you think of what I'm about, which is making money simple so that you can have wealth or health, wealth, wisdom, and happiness, and fully live now. You can see the wisdom and the gift we have with Dr. Paul, who just has lived this for a long time. So this wisdom is amazing from my perspective, and I wanted to share it with you as followers. With that, Dr. Paul, any additional insight that you would want to share? And then certainly I would love you to share how people can learn more, and what would be your ask of my audience.
Yeah. So what I want people to know is that anybody can learn this if they want to. The wounded part of ourselves doesn't want to be unmasked, doesn't want you to recognize that you have a power way beyond your ability to control people and external things, which is an illusion. So I want people to know that you can learn this and that you can really change your life to one of such profound inner peace and joy and productivity at the same time, because of course we want to be expressing ourselves. And the more we learn to love ourselves, the more we get to express who we are and what we came to do on this planet. And people can find out more about this at innerbonding.com. We have a free 7-day course people can take to get the underlying understanding of inner bonding. And then there's many other courses. We have a Love Yourself course, relationship courses. There's a lot of courses at innerbonding.com. And then, of course, the books.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Paul. And there's, I know, an 8-week course coming up. So I'm going to share all this with my audience. I'm going to share it in the notes because I truly believe she's here for a reason, and that she's a blessing and gift to the world. And we need this right now. So I am going to share this and know personally about her work and the benefits thereof. So thank you for what you do and for sharing your truth that's been shared with you. So thanks again. And for sure, plan to have you back on if you're open to it, because you have so much knowledge to share. Thanks again, audience, for joining the Way to Wealth podcast, where we're all about making money simple, allowing you to fully live now. Catch you next week.
The opinions voiced in Way to Wealth with Scott Ford, Managing Director, Partner, and Wealth Advisor of Carson Wealth, are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial, or tax advisor prior to investing. Guests on Way to Wealth are not affiliated with CWM LLC or Cetera Advisor Networks LLC. Legato Family is not affiliated with Cetera Advisor Networks LLC or CWM LLC. Carson Wealth, 19833 Leitersburg Pike, Suite 1, Hagerstown, Maryland, 21742.